That's right, tyranny.
Charity.
Charity. Get out of here,
Wait, why
charity.
is my why is
Get out of here, charity.
that's I'm so confused. So if I like click away while while I have push to talk on,
Mm-hmm.
it stays on. So like you shouldn't have been able to hear me yell at my dog because I wasn't pushing to talk.
Hmm.
It's weird. I'll have to keep that in mind. Wow, our delay is very short. I can hear myself within like 2 or 3 seconds after saying it on stream.
Yeah, I muted myself because that'll drive me nuts. Also, I'm pretty sure if it's playing on my computer, that that it'll go right back into the stream, and then we'll
Yeah,
get
here.
a really cool.
Let me fix one thing on my mouse real quick.
Yeah. Have you have you seen this cool thing you can do on OBS yet?
No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't pull up the preview window in the same window that you're streaming from. Today I
That's
learned.
really funny. Once once the bot announces that we're live, I say we go ahead and get started.
Okay. All right.
If it ever does it.
Did the last one? It looks like pretty quick. It said 8:31. We started right at 8:30.
It's probably on some sort of cron job or something.
I don't know what that even means.
So a cron job is like a scheduled recurring task that
Okay.
your server will run a script every X amount of time.
Can't do more than one thing at a time. These robots, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fibs R Us is looking for us. Twitch.tv/ Crypto Mountain Streaming. Right? No go
Did you
yet?
post it or did you DM him?
He DM'd me.
Gotcha. Because he posted about it in Basecamp too. All right, come on, bot. Okay, I just posted it
Okay.
for the bot, and I'll delete my message when he finally posts it.
All right, perfect. All right, so welcome back, everybody. This is the Coinspiracy Nut here for another episode of Rehash. This week in this week's news in crypto, brought to you by the Crypto Mountain. And this week I have Blue Forge back here with me. Why don't you say hello to everybody?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Glad to be back in here. What's up, Cryptoverso? Glad to see you in here. Glad to see you decided to join us again. Yeah, so we're getting in here, digging into some of the good news that's going on this week. We're going to be focusing on the adoption of crypto around the world. The news is a little bleak for the price, and what's been going on with Bitcoin and alts in general. So we're going to focus on the good news that we got going on, bring a little joy back to everybody.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about. And the big news this week is Coinbase has finally added another coin. And it wasn't the coin that I thought they were going to add. So on my Coinbase bingo card, Ethereum Classic was not one of the options. But I mean, here we are. So how do you feel about this, Blue? Did I lose you?
Yeah, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to fix my keybind, so you start talking about it, and then I'll jump in here in a sec.
Okay. So obviously we know that Coinbase is loading up coins that they're going to want to list either on Coinbase slash GDAX or on this new bulletin board decentralized exchange that they're considering releasing not only globally and then later in the US. So there was a lot of chatter about what coins might be the first to get picked up. And 0x was on the top of a lot of people's lists. People talked about the BAT token as a big as a contender, and we saw market movement basically illustrating that people believe that these were at the top of the list for a Coinbase ad. And Ethereum Classic was not necessarily on the top of most people's lists. Now, this isn't happening right away, which is one of the things that I am grateful for, that this was not launched in the same way that Bitcoin Cash was launched. The Bitcoin Cash launch on Coinbase was interesting, to say the least. It came out of nowhere. It forced them to shut down trading on that pair for a period of time, and it left a lot of opportunity for people with access to information to have an unfair advantage when you do a release in that way. But they're telling us Ethereum Classic is coming to Coinbase months ahead of time. You back, Blue?
Yeah, I'm back in here.
Good. So, hey, Wade Watts, not all about the index fund. What do you mean by that question? So what do you think about Ethereum Classic, Blue?
I think it's interesting that they picked Ethereum Classic.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense because it is a hard fork of Ethereum, and I'm sure that it's probably not going to be that difficult for their engineering team to get it added to their system. It's not one of the larger cap coins out there, but it is, its price is, it's more than $1. It's more than $10. It's a solid, low price, higher liquidity coin that I think will be a good add to their portfolio. On the Coinbase, like Wade Watts. So Wade Watts brings the Coinbase Index Fund. I think it will be a good add for that Coinbase Index Fund, and for all of the other, for the standard, purchase through their app and through GDAX, which is now what, Coinbase Pro or something like that. I think it's a solid add. It's interesting that they chose that one first, because like you said, there was no buzz, there was no rumors, there was nothing about Ethereum Classic being the next coin that they add.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a solid choice.
So the one thing that I wanted to talk about was, if Coinbase continues to be the onboard ramp, the onboarding ramp for new cryptocurrency adopters, when they first log into this app, right, they're going to see Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, and Litecoin, right? What do you think that there's going to be any kind of like cognitive dissonance as a completely new person looking at cryptocurrency for the first time when you see two different Bitcoins and two different Ethereums on the app where you want to buy your coins?
I do believe it could add some confusion. Also, I'd like to Rockabron, thank you for following us. Car Wash 101, thank you for following us. Means a lot to have you guys support us. Um, I think it could get confusing for some new users. I think if they see Bitcoin Cash and they see Ethereum Classic right next to Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think that they will get confused. But what I think it will do is I think it will almost force the user's hand into doing a little bit more research, making sure that they know they're buying the right thing, which overall is beneficial. It causes them, to learn more about what
Yeah. So
Urso plays. Thank you for your follow.
um so I definitely, and I also think that Grayscale Investments has, an investment product for Ethereum Classic. Blue, how do you see live when people follow? If I'm not looking at the screen, can I see that? Does it pop up anywhere?
It should be popping up. I have the ground control for Stream Elements pulled up, so
Okay.
I'm seeing them in real time.
Okay.
So Caltoro, thank you for your follow.
We'll,
Seriously, appreciate you guys coming out and supporting us.
we'll do that next week. No
Yeah,
problem.
we'll get you set up on it.
Yeah.
So
But,
I didn't catch part of what you said before you asked that question.
so I was just basically saying that Grayscale Investments, Barry Silbert's John, they have an Ethereum Classic, investment product, and so I think that the steps that Grayscale has taken to legitimize Ethereum Classic in the more traditional investment sphere in the United States is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons that Coinbase was able and comfortable to make this one of its primary trading pairs. Because, if we kind of see how Coinbase is talking about these introductions, we're starting to see that when Coinbase releases an asset like this or news like this, they talk about it in a couple of different ways, right? So they talk about it from a custody standpoint and a market standpoint, because they've announced that they're going to offer custody services. And that's probably going to be for many more coins than they offer market services for. And I think that that's important to denote, because Coinbase is really seeing that for true adoption by the masses and by institutions, custody is an important aspect where people want to know that where they keep their assets, that it's safe. And a big argument for a cryptocurrency blockchain maximalist is, well, if I own my keys, then I alone own my coins. And I believe that personally, but frankly, the user interface is really, really difficult for new players in the game right now. And yes, exchanges can get hacked, but if you're not technically savvy, it's just as easy to lose a password, to lose a private key, or to lose access to your two-factor authentication. And so I do think that custody services is an important step to be taking for Coinbase right now. But they're also going to be talking about this from a markets perspective, and so I'm expecting to see more news like this from Coinbase about more coins. And they're not all going to get listed on Coinbase or GDAX as a trading pair, but I do think in the near future we're going to see more news about coins that they're going to be custodians of, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, Crypto Maniac commented that Ethereum Classic was a safe bet for them, meaning Coinbase, or for them. Coinbase is just waiting to get a security license approved by the SEC before listing any ERC20 tokens in case the tokens are classified as securities. I completely agree. And actually, in this article, in the Coinbase article that we're going through, they actually talk about one of the FAQs that they bring up. It says, what assets are you adding next? And They mentioned that we've previously announced our intention to support the ERC20 technical standard and Bitcoin forks. We will announce the intention to add specific assets within those categories prior to final engineering integration. So I completely agree. I think they are waiting on that. They're doing things the right way. Coinbase has an incredible legal team behind them because the fact that they've been able to operate in the capacity that they have for this long, it's impressive. And they have an amazing legal team behind them that is probably advising them to do exactly what you said. I don't know if they've announced that, and that's why you're bringing that up, but I do agree 100%. They are waiting to get that security license approved by the SEC because they want to do things the right way.
Yeah. And kind of in closing on this, the fact that Ethereum Classic and Ethereum are now supported by Coinbase, it kind of bodes well for the securities argument about Ethereum in general. I think that for a lot of people, that was still there was still some contention about whether or not we were going to go, is this a security or is this really a utility at this point? But there was this holdout that, well, maybe Ethereum, the forked chain, is a utility, but Ethereum Classic, the original chain, could be considered a security. But now that we've kind of brought them both under the Coinbase umbrella, which everything under the Coinbase umbrella has gone through a lot of legal scrutiny, as you just kind of mentioned, that this kind of tells me that in their mind, they think Ethereum is, at this point, a pretty safe bet from a regulatory standpoint.
Right. And keep in mind what we talked about last week with the regulation news and the SEC making comments that cryptocurrencies are not securities.
Yeah.
And this news that they're going to be adding Ethereum Classic comes very shortly after that news. It's not a coincidence. They were waiting for news like this to come out before saying what they were and weren't going to add.
Right.
And so, yeah, this isn't coincidence. This is perfectly timed. And it is, now they know that they can add this while still staying within the confines of the law.
Yeah.
And it's very smart. Hardly difficult. Thank you for your host. We got a 20 viewer host from Hardly Difficult. Appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you, Hardly Difficult. And yeah, last thing I want to say on this is Verso Plays talked about how everybody was saying that this was a conspiracy between Binance and Coinbase. Yeah, I don't think there was any conspiracy. I think Binance saw the listing come up. It's fairly easy for them to add another trading pair, especially on a coin that they already have trading pairs on. And there's money on the table if they don't add that pair right away. So by adding the BNB and the USDT, pairs, they're just allowing more people to trade on for that asset, and they get fees for that. So I don't think there's any collusion or early information afoot there.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
All right, you want to move on to this CFTC statement transcript?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So I wanted to bring this up today. If you guys haven't read this yet, the CFTC. This is a transcript from the remarks of one of the commissioners, Benham, at one of the summits. I think this is about a week ago, maybe a little bit more than a week ago at this point. But I don't believe we talked about it last week, and I think it's really important to go through, because for me, I felt like this was incredibly progressive talk around blockchain, and the vast majority of this entire statement was about his position on blockchain and cryptocurrencies in general, and it had a lot of really encouraging language, and so I wanted to talk about it for a couple minutes. Even in the beginning of this, he says, this is kind of in the beginning of his remarks, he says, when when he said, I agree with Fernandez de Cordova, who spoke earlier today, when he said the future is now and we must engage in a multi-stakeholder approach. Yes, we must. And he's basically saying that cryptocurrency, blockchain as a technology is it's something that we have to be a part of the conversation on, which is important for me because we kind of talked in the last rehash that my fear is that the United States in general is going to get left behind in a big way because of their fear around having progressive regulation, specifically with new asset classes or new technologies like blockchain. And this is really, a statement coming from a stakeholder in this conversation from the States that's saying that blockchain could become, it is a large, it is a disruptive technology, but that it could go either way, right? But in every transformation, there's a possibility that progress won't march forward in a straight line, as optimists tend to envision. And so we have to be thoughtful. We have to have these conversations, which is really what I want our regulators to be approaching this as, we're all figuring out what is blockchain, what does it do, what are we going to use it for? And that's an evolving conversation even amongst us, right? And I want a regulator that's going to participate in a flexible conversation as we kind of discover the best use cases for and all of the corner cases that cryptocurrency kind of presents.
Yeah, and I agree completely that his remarks on blockchain technology and cryptocurrency in general, it got me excited. And some of the topics that he touches on, I think, are very interesting, and they're all topics that people in the blockchain world are attempting to address. As scrolling through this and reading through some of his comments, he touches on corruption, and the way that the virtual asset technology can be combated, or it can actually be exacerbated by blockchain technology. So
that he said technology could simply bypass corruption, which is essentially what people, real maximalists, have been saying for a while, which is don't trust, verify. If we can remove the centralized players from some of these systems, we eliminate a lot of their ability to leverage the things they used to leverage to be corrupt, to be bad actors in the space.
Right. And then he goes on to touch on poverty and says, so he says, I know that some have argued that virtual assets could be a way to spread the wealth and end poverty. They've argued blockchain could be the means for ending poverty, that such a possibility should drive virtual debate. The so-called unbanked could now be on the virtual grid, and those without computers, some 4 billion people, could gain an important connection through cell phones. He touched on corruption, or on cell phones, in his statement about corruption as well. Yeah. There's 6.8 billion cell phones in the world, which is almost one per person. And the fact that they can now access this global economy that they previously didn't have any access to using simply their cell phones is huge. Yeah. He also touches on agriculture. He touches on healthcare. These are all fields that could immensely be impacted by the blockchain technology. Things like, storing, healthcare data on the blockchain, and storing, DNA information and whatnot, test results, other vital information. The blockchain could allow patients to create smart records that gather and harmonize information, leading to better continuity of care and even new models of care. I think this is very huge, and he even mentions shortly about, or right before he begins making all these statements, and this is a statement that I've seen multiple times. When we touched on regulation, regulation news last week, we saw China brought this up. We saw that the SEC brought this up. And this is a statement that I've heard multiple times, and the statement is, we are witnessing a technological revolution. Perhaps we are witnessing a modern miracle. This is what all of the world governments at this point are saying. This is the fourth revolution, industrial revolution. This is a modern miracle. This is technological revolution. That statement alone, as it's coming out and as
Yeah.
countries are saying it, is very. It's a. It's very bullish. First of all,
Right.
B, it kind of gets me pumped because now we're starting to see a world where people are realizing, hey, maybe there is something to this blockchain technology, and maybe it is, maybe it's not just some Ponzi scheme
Right.
where the early adopters are getting rich off of this new money that's coming in. No, this is a technological revolution.
You nailed it, and that's exactly why I felt like it was important to share this, because for me, this is he is speaking in the same way that like a Bitcoin maximalist has been speaking for many years, right? Saying this is not just magic internet money. This is life changing and paradigm shifting technology that's going to affect every area of our life, right? And it's so encouraging to see someone on this level, on a stage this big, say very similar things, and it's in stark contrast with what the market is showing us right now, right? And the market's behaving in the way that it is for a lot of other reasons. We might have been overpriced for some time now, but the future that we all invested in is alive and well, and cogs are turning to make that more and more available, that narrative more and more available to people outside of that space every single day.
Absolutely. Fibs are us. Thanks for the follow, dude. Glad to see you made it over from Discord. Glad to have you here.
Shout out
But
to
yeah,
Discord.
I Zoid Boy, thanks for the follow. Glad to see you made it over too. It's cool to see all of our Crypto Mountain Discord users popping over. If you're not part of our Discord, you want to join, it's free. It's open to anybody who wants to come in, learn more about trading, learn more about blockchain technology, learn more about crypto in general. So pop in, give us a shout out. We'd love to talk with you. And glad you guys all made it out. But yeah, so getting back to this, I completely agree. This is it paradigm shifting, and he mentions, and I can see this. Many countries, he says, many countries simply don't know what to do. Their policy is bewilderment or avoidance, and some countries think that virtual currencies are only a problem for developed countries like
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland or Germany, Singapore, or the United States. 100%. If you look, all of the developed nations are the ones that are trying to keep this shut down. All of the developing nations are the ones who are adopting this,
Right.
and they're leaning into this full blast.
Yeah.
Oniru too. He says, "We heal. We believe we are reborn today. Science tells us that the essence of nature is potential, and that this is cryptocurrency."
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely, dude. I love that.
we're investing in the potential. Yeah, and I think, and the reason that I really enjoy kind of looking at this news and talking about this stuff with you is because I do have a habit of maybe getting a little too tied up in the charts and the returns, and that can separate me from the purpose and the impact of what's actually happening here. And cryptocurrency moves so fast that my timelines get really small, right? When you're talking about the investments, I start looking at things on an hour to hour or a day to day basis. But I think what this really means for us as a technology needs to be viewed on a year to year, if not like decade to decade basis. And it's nice to step back and remind myself that things are in motion that aren't reflected right now on Cryptopia charts.
Yeah, right. And that's and this about me, but I'm sure most of the people watching
Yeah.
don't. I'm not a charts guy.
Yeah.
I don't do TA. That's not who I am. I am strictly a fundamentals guy, a technology guy. I do invest in alts and I invest in, blockchains, Bitcoin and whatnot, because of the potential that I see.
Fun.
Not because, yeah, fun. It's not a Blue Forge stream unless I talk about fun. But I don't invest in things because a chart looks good. I invest in things because what they are trying to accomplish and the problems that they are trying to solve are real world problems, and they are things that are going to revolutionize their industry. So in the way that, bringing fun into this, fun is attempting to revolutionize the gambling industry. They're trying to say, hey, we want to create this platform where virtual casinos can exist, and they can be created on the fly, and they can be created in a fair and transparent manner, that hasn't been done before in the past. You can go and gamble on an online casino or a brick and mortar casino right now, and you don't know your odds.
Right.
With Funfair, that's not going to be the case. You're going to know your odds before you even start gambling. And that's huge, and that's tackling a problem that has existed within our world in casinos, and
Right.
that's why I'm invested in that product.
Yeah.
And so, you're more of the charts guy. You definitely run off of charts, and so, like you said, it's cool to kind of be able to step back and look at that stuff, but and that's why I enjoy talking to you, because you look more short term
Yeah.
at stuff that I don't even look at.
Mm-hmm.
And I look more long term at stuff that you don't even look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I need practicing the patience is a definite gap in my strategy right now, which is kind of why I was drawn to cryptocurrency initially. Right, you didn't need to have much patience.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about, again on this theme of, adoption. We've, this. Let's talk about this Warhol painting. So
Yeah, this is a really interesting thing to me. So, I mean, from what I understand about what they're doing, is they're essentially democratizing the ownership of Warhol paintings,
yes.
on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this has been in the cryptocurrency news for a while now. I know this was, I think Vice just did a piece coming out of Consensus, kind of talking about art on the blockchain. And when you talk about, essentially tokenization of assets, art has been one of those things that have been at the forefront of that conversation. And I think that's for a couple of reasons personally. I think one, uh, speculation, price speculation is part of the art culture already. So having this, transferring that speculation to an asset that's related to that art is not as big of a jump as it would be to some other assets. And I also think it has less regulatory complications, whereas like real estate might have more hoops to jump through if you want to make a token that represents a house rather than a token that represents a painting.
Right.
So, but I do think that this is pretty interesting. But so for me, my big question is all on all of this, like, why do you want to own a piece of art? A piece of art, you know?
I mean, the same argument could be made. Why do you want to own a piece of virtual currency, though?
I understand this, right? But this is like the mental hoop, because you're right. It kind of reflects. It makes me look at it in the mirror and say, what am I buying in any of these projects, really, right? But it is an interesting concept to me. So I guess I would say, so when does the person benefit financially? When the piece of art is resold, or when they sell their share of the art for more? Is that
right? Yeah, I mean, that's essentially, it does talk about that a bit. It says placing ownership of the piece onto the blockchain means that people are able to buy a fraction of the artwork and transfer their ownership easily to other people.
Yeah.
So, say I bought, 1/5 of this or 1/10 of this piece of artwork for $100, and then someone comes to me and, you know what? I want to own one tenth of this artwork. I want to buy your share off of you for $200. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. You've just doubled your money. In the same way that crypto kitties, you're buying whole pieces of cats or whatever. But
Right.
imagine someone could be like, you know what, I want to own 50% of your cat. I can then transfer 50% of the ownership to them very easily. And that's what this comes down to, is it's a real world example. This is almost, I almost think of this as an art version of cryptocurrency, like a real, like, performance art almost. Like, hey, like, you don't understand how the blockchain works and how cryptocurrency works. Well, here's a real world example. Here's a performance art piece on how it works. You can own 1/10 of this painting, or 1/100th of this painting. You can buy and sell it to who you want, or from who you want, sell it to who you want, but until that time, you own one fraction of this artwork, and that's how cryptocurrency works. And so I think it's an interesting, in my mind, this is nothing more than a performance art, in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And it makes a statement. I mean, this is definitely setting a precedent that I think is really exciting. Because tokenization of assets, in my opinion, is like one of the best use cases of a blockchain. I've seen a lot of utility tokens try to fit the idea of a distributed ledger into their use case. When I really dig into it, I feel like, well, no, actually, I think the optimal way of a lot of those use cases running is with a centralized database, right? But when we talk about the tokenization of an asset, a distributed ledger is very, very valuable because it allows me to truly have ownership of my part of the asset, and it leaves it in a place that we don't need to trust a centralized stakeholder to maintain my share, right? The one thing is, with this, we do have to trust someone to hold on to the painting, and who is that person, you know?
Right, and that's the one difference in this
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
DForce88, thanks for your follow, dude. I'm glad to see you made it out.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to say that's kind of related to this is the reason that this is kind of interesting as an idea is that a lot of art that is bought and sold in auctions currently is being held in warehouses at airports, because those warehouses fall into and I read about this a while ago, so I don't remember the specific name for it, but a tax loophole where people do not have to pay the import taxes that they would pay if they actually receive that package at its destination. But if it's kind of caught in limbo in these warehouses at the airport, they're able to kind of have a tax haven for art specifically. So a lot of people who are buying art as a speculative asset are not hanging it up anyway. So they for all intents and purposes only have ownership of it on paper, because they never actually take physical possession of it. And they do that for favorable tax circumstances. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that those speculators would also say, if I can have some of those same favorable tax circumstances by buying a token of an art asset, that's essentially the same thing of what I'm already doing, but I don't have to pay the airport the fees to store the actual piece. I can just buy a portion of that piece. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, it was on I think Planet Money sent me down that rabbit hole about a month ago. I might have to try to pull it up for everyone later, but I'm not going to go digging now. Let's talk about what happened over at Overstock. So this initially came to my attention. Ethan Ackerman on Twitter, who's a great crypto follow, was talking about this. One of Overstock's ex-chairman a statement he made about cryptocurrency. Now, Overstock is been a player to watch for quite some time in the cryptocurrency space. To my knowledge,
big
it's cutting out big time. Streamhouse says we're good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
That's weird. The stream says we haven't dropped any frames. So you think it was Discord?
It might have been Discord. Okay, so they can hear you just fine.
Okay.
It must just be Discord.
Okay. Boo. Okay. So, Overstock
Continue.
Overstock has been a player to watch because they're one of the first big players to start accepting cryptocurrencies in a big way, and they have been for years. And their CEO is a a cryptocurrency evangelist. So he truly believes that cryptocurrency is going to be the technology that is going to end corruption on Wall Street. And he has been very public about this on more than one occasion, I believe on a TED Talk, at a couple other conferences. And so, as a consequence, also Overstock is, I believe, owns tZERO, which is a company that ICO'd and is planning to have one of the first regulatory compliant security token exchanges in the United States. So Overstock has been big in the cryptocurrency space for quite some time. And so that kind of, so right now they're have about 68,000 to 120,000 a week in cryptocurrency revenue. So these are people who are buying stuff with cryptocurrency. And that's why we wanted to talk about this, because the people who bought pizza with 10,000 Bitcoin are the reason that I made any money in cryptocurrency at all. Because if someone didn't exchange a crypto for a good, it never would have had any value. And so it's important that we use cryptocurrencies as currencies, and Overstock is one of the biggest places, in the world, I would say right now, where people are exchanging cryptocurrency directly for goods goods primarily on their site. And so it's important to watch and to talk about. So Blue, what do you think about this? Did I lose you? Oh no. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's Discord. Stream says we're good. Is everybody else still with me? Okay, so Blue, Discord struggling. So I'm gonna keep rolling. I hope it's not me. Thanks, Leprechaun. We're glad to have you here. You can subscribe to the channel. We stream a couple times a week. I stream every Monday with at Crypto Christopher Walken for Mining Mondays, where we talk about passive income and cryptocurrency. On Wednesday, Blue Forge and I do the Rehash Show, where we talk about this week's news. And on Friday, we want to do something fun. We didn't do it last Friday because, to be honest, we were all a little down in the dumps. But we're gonna do something fun on Fridays. I don't know exactly what that's gonna look like. Whether it's a gaming stream, maybe we'll do a BitMEX casino stream. But you can also follow us on the Discord channel. We're in there every day. We talk about fundamental analysis, technical analysis, upcoming catalysts, the most recent news. So Overstock is taking this $68,000 or $120,000 a week, and what are they doing with it, right? And so what the statement said was that they were taking half of its Bitcoin revenue for income for the business, and then they're using the other half to pay suppliers, which to me insinuates that not only So what's a BitMEX casino, Zoid Boy? We haven't figured it out quite yet. But BitMEX is a highly leveraged trading platform, which I only trade on the testnet. I'm a U.S. citizen, but we were thinking about maybe doing some not investment advice, high leverage trades, where one person trades and then the other person has to take the opposite side of that trade, and then we see at the end of the night who makes more money: the person who's trying to make money or the person who has to counter trade them. I think it could be a lot of fun, but we'll figure it out. I'm sure there'll be more news as Friday comes up. Um, but what this kind of tells me is that not T0, Overstock is not only accepting cryptocurrency from consumers, but is trying to have some of their suppliers accept cryptocurrency as a currency. Let's see. Technical difficulties. So he was bullish on blockchain because he basically says that they pay a very small transaction fee to Coinbase, but that it's much smaller than the credit card processing fee. And then they don't have to have a fraud prevention department because you can't undo the transaction on the blockchain, right? Once somebody, I'm sure there's some customer service aspect to this, but there's no fraud prevention. So for them, it's a cheaper way of doing business. And one of the things I love about Overstock is that they understand that talking about blockchain adoption is a bullish indicator for their stock price, and not in a pump and dump way, right? This is not Long Island blockchain, right? This is a business who is accepting and integrating cryptocurrencies as a future of their business as an online, business that sells goods and services to consumers online. So I think that, and he basically said what we've been echoing is that it's important that we have some regulatory clarity, because that's why a lot of people are on the sidelines. Like, even if we are not a fan of regulation, regulatory clarity is crucial if we want people to have the confidence to be able to invest in this market. Because, even if the regulatory clarity is negative in some regards, having a clear line in the sand that people can know whether or not they're crossing is important when making a large investment decision. So let me, Blue, are you back?
All right, yeah, sweet. I'm back and I can hear you fine.
I don't know what's up. I think
I don't know what was going on. Yeah. My everything was freaking out, but I think I got it figured out now.
Okay. If it's something with the stream, we can work on it. But it looks like I don't think we dropped any frames. So
no, I think it was on my end. All these guys were saying that it's been solid. So
okay. So did you want to say anything about Overstock's news? No. Rip.
Fact of leading. See, it's breaking up again for me. But I like the fact, Overstock is kind of providing this easy roadmap for other companies to follow. They're kind of stepping their foot into the market, and for cryptocurrency in general to become an actual real world use case, and use for payments and whatnot. I like that. I like that a lot. He mentions that this guy science on the Howey test and determining when a token offering is and is not a security has created too much uncertainty in the space. I think I agree, because the Howey test has always been for traditional securities. It's not been for what we see tokens being, what we see cryptocurrency being. And so I think there does need to be another method of measuring and determining this information.
Yeah, because like we were saying last week, it's complicated, right? Cryptocurrencies or distributed ledger are they have a lot of different use cases, and you can't put a blanket that covers all of them, right? There's coins that are used as a store of value. There's coins that are used as a medium of exchange. There's coins that have a use for data storage or otherwise, right? And all of these things need to be viewed with a different lens, because although maybe to someone who is new to the space, they're all like Bitcoin. In reality, they're very, very different in what their purpose is, how they were created, how people make money off them. And unless you understand all the specifics, it's really difficult to make a sweeping judgment on them as a group, because they are individualized in a lot of ways. I think I lost Blue again. Oh boy. All right. So Norwegian Air is building an exchange and considering crypto ticket purchases. So I thought this was interesting. If anybody is from overseas and can tell me what the U.S. equivalent is to Norwegian Air from like a size, is this like a Southwest type airline? I know it's like a low cost airline. So is it like Southwest? Is it Spirit? Because I was having trouble getting some context on like just how big of an airline this is. So if you're from overseas and you can let me know in the chat, please do. They're starting a blockchain exchange, which I thought was pretty interesting, and it is a complete departure from their role as a airline. And it looks like they're really stepping, with both feet into the blockchain space, which to me is a really good sign, because if a low cost, frequently used airline starts to accept cryptocurrency as payment, that's bullish in the same way that Overstock's adoption is bullish. But until there is more evidence, a lot of this could also feel like a cash grab. You back with us, Blue?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you haven't broken up for a while, so I think
okay.
You're good.
So how do you view this? Do you see this as profitable business stepping into another profitable area, or do you see this as maybe a business that is struggling to find returns, looking to step in on the blockchain craze?
I think a little of both, honestly.
Yeah.
I like you. I don't know how big Norwegian Air is, and I don't know how much revenue they're bringing in. I do know I've heard of Norwegian Air in the past, and I've actually looked at some flights that use Norwegian Air. I highly doubt they're overly struggling, but I do think that, like any other business, they're looking to increase their revenue. Does it feel kind of like a cash grab? Absolutely. Should I developing a cryptocurrency exchange? No way in hell. However, I do like that they are adding the ability, they're considering adding the ability to accept cryptocurrency for tickets.
Yeah.
And I think that may be part of why they're building an exchange.
Yeah.
They're probably looking at that as kind of a first step into accepting it, and not having to rely on someone like Coinbase for trading, cryptocurrency for fiat. And so I think to an extent it's going to make sense. I don't think that they're just going about this haphazardly and create an exchange for no reason. But at this moment, it does feel a bit like a cash grab. But it's still good news. It's still very bullish to me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, just because it's good news doesn't mean that it can't be a cash grab.
Yeah, and I agree, because to me it's, and I guess like I've been a little jaded from this year of ICOs, But when I see people, it has all the buzzwords, right? We're starting an exchange. We're going to use blockchain in our cargo business, right? But those are actually legitimate, ventures in blockchain projects. And so to see the caliber of companies who are starting to dip their toe into this space increase, that's very bullish to me because, frankly, at the very least, they're an established company with real revenue, customer base, real assets, and and compared to a lot of the things in the cryptocurrency space, that says a lot. How many cryptocurrency companies were actually generating revenue and had a business model that was working before they decided to incorporate blockchain as part of it? I would say the number is very, very low.
Yeah. I think that they talk about accepting cryptocurrency for tickets and whatnot, and yeah, it's good. So but it brings up, so one thing that you and I had actually looked into for a separate project that we're going to be working on, more to come soon, trademark. But I think that they could probably utilize something like the ERC 721 standard.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a perfect real world use for a 721 standard.
Yeah.
Where that each ticket could be its own ERC 721.
Yeah.
And you purchase that token, and that token gets you on the flight that you're supposed to be on.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is, ahead of time when you booked that flight, you would then be able to go back and you'd be able to look and say, all right, how many tickets have been sold for my flight, and how many seats are there on this plane? Okay, they wouldn't be able to oversell flights like they do anymore.
Right. Well,
100%.
Right. So for those that are unfamiliar, ERC 721s
what it could be buying.
Oh, I lost you. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, you could be buying a seat on a plane. ERC 721 is one seat per plane. It's a unique seat for that unique flight. And I think that could be a perfect use case for this 721 standard. I think that would be a very cool way for an airline to adopt crypto.
Yeah. And so these non-fungible tokens are, like Blue was saying, they're unique, right? And whereas an ERC20 token, each one of those tokens is similar to all of the other tokens. When you start to see at the ERC 721s, you're able to look at things like tickets as individual assets. And these are the same kind of tokens that are being used on things like CryptoKitties or Pepe Dap, to constitute a unique item on the blockchain, which is what you would need when selling seats or registering the provenance of an item over a cargo chain, right? So
I don't know what's going on with my chat. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know either, man.
It's weird. Okay, so DForce88 said if they intend to implement all those ideas, they will need to reinvent the wheel several times. I don't disagree. I don't disagree that they're going to reinvent the wheel several times trying to get this right. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't try.
Yeah.
Because if the interesting thing about the ERC 721 standard is, right now, if I buy a plane ticket and I can't go, I have to cancel my flight and I don't get a refund for it.
Right.
Or if I have to cancel it last minute or whatever, what I could do in this case is, with an ERC 721, I could sell my ticket. I could sell this token to someone else who wants the flight. Now they have ownership of it. Now they can take the flight. Doesn't matter who owns it. It just matters who has the ticket. I don't think that they're going to be happy. The airlines would necessarily be happy about that.
Right.
But I think that it would be a very cool and future, like, long-term use of the ERC 721 standard.
Yeah, and the TSA would lose it. So maybe like airlines aren't the best first example for that. But think about like a sports game in StubHub, right? that it's, you know, they don't care who's in the seat. They just care that you can scan it on the way in the door. And so to take something like StubHub, where I'm at risk of buying, you know, a potentially fraudulent ticket, and I need to have some kind of buyer protection, if these are all unique items on the blockchain, and that's all able, you know, all I do is transfer ownership of that token. That's a really, you know, valid use case for you know, a blockchain.
Yeah, I think something like that, or something like another type of transportation, like an air, or not an airline, a like a bus
Train
line
ticket,
or
yeah.
a train ticket. I think that could be a a very cool. I mean, it would almost be a gimmick in a sense
Yeah,
initially,
yeah,
but it could be a very cool example of what it can do, and they could pave the way for then airlines to start adopting this technology.
yeah. That's super interesting. Now you got me like really thinking. So, all right. In the interest of time, let's move on to our final piece of news. What do you think? Sound good?
Yep, sounds great.
All right, so let's talk about the EOS launch or lack thereof. So, if you have been following, EOS went through a year-long ICO, and at the beginning of this month, they were ready to move from an ERC20 token to have a mainnet launch. But in order for an EOS chain to be considered a valid blockchain, 15% of all tokens on that chain need to vote for at least one block producer. So the way that EOS works is there are a group of block producers, and then there is a slightly larger group of backup block producers in case one of them goes offline. And those are the nodes that have been voted in by the network and will be the ones managing and validating all transactions on the network. So token holders on the EOS, you know, network are able to vote for the block producer candidates that they want. And a lot of block producers have been basically petitioning to be one of the top producers because it's very lucrative to be a block producer. It's very difficult. It needs a decent amount of infrastructure to be done correctly. But you will be getting some of the rewards as one of the, you know, they don't call them master nodes, but for, you know, as a metaphor or an example, it's kind of like you'd be one of, you know, 20 or 30 master nodes on the EOS network, and that could be very lucrative. But you know, almost about a week later, we only have 9% of total tokens voting, which is worrisome because if they don't hit 15%, those tokens stay frozen on the network until they do. And so, what do you think about this, Blue?
I don't know much about EOS in general.
Okay.
It's not something I've dug much into.
Yeah.
I just, the fact that not even 9%
Right.
of the tokens out there have voted, and not even, the top one blockchain, or the one top, block creator out there has only received 3.4%
Right.
of that 9% of votes.
Yeah. And
Like,
so
that's insane, because that shows that there's no cohesiveness into this, and the fact that they've been up for when did they launch?
I don't want to quote an exact day because I don't have it in front of me and I'll get roasted for it. But it's coming up on a week, I believe, maybe a little bit more. Hold on, let me look.
Yeah, so they've been up for roughly a week, and one of the these providers can't even secure the 15, can't secure more than 5% of the total votes that have been put out. That does not, in my mind, that does not bode well for this project.
So to be clear, no one block producer needs 15%. Just 15% of the tokens need to vote on at least one producer, right? So you can have 3% of the votes and still be the one of the top block producers. But I think this shows, for me, the reason I brought this up, and I think this is interesting, is it brings up a couple issues, right? And primarily, well, so for me, the reason this is important is because I think it's very revealing to how the majority of a token distribution happens. So most of the EOS tokens are held on exchanges that are not voting with those tokens because they made a statement that they wouldn't. So Bitfinex was going to integrate a voting capability for individuals who hold EOS tokens on their exchange to be able to vote through their exchange. But the other exchanges aren't going to vote because they don't want to be political and use tokens that really aren't theirs to vote in, someone who, potentially could be beneficial for them. And, Bitfinex is one of the block producer candidates, so they kind of led that charge, and they're like, we're not going to vote with our tokens, but we're going to try to give people the ability to vote with theirs. But I do not believe that was implemented. So this kind of really, and obviously, like, these block producers, I would assume to some degree have a very large stake in EOS. Whether they pick them up on exchanges or as part of the ICO, I would assume that if they're going to be invested in the future of this project by being a block producer, that they would probably have a large amount of exposure to the project. And so the fact that, like, you can vote for yourself and we haven't even gotten 15% of the votes, that tells me that something's up. Either a lot of these tokens are on exchanges and people don't know how, or now can't vote for a block producer because they didn't send them into a wallet where they were registered for themselves, or it might allude that there are a lot of tokens that are just not held by people who don't want or can't vote than we initially thought.
Yeah.
Which is,
or it's possible that they don't care.
They don't care. That's really
right,
what I meant to say. Yeah.
Yeah, because I read, I'm pretty sure it was in reference to EOS, that there are 360,000 unique EOS holders globally.
Yeah.
And that's wallets. That's not the exchange. That's not people who are trading it on an exchange. Those are unique wallet holders. And so, if you tie in exchanges to that, that's 3 or 4 or 5, capping out at 10 to 20 at most.
Yeah.
So that's still 340,000 addresses that contain EOS.
Yeah.
That are, and only 8.9% of those have voted. And so I think, I don't think that it's that if they hold it in their wallet, they can vote. I think most people just don't care enough. They don't understand why does it benefit me to vote for one of these block producers.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue.
Yeah, and the other, it's also not super user friendly to vote. So, like, a lot of the ways to vote involve you exposing part of your potentially your private key to be able to log a vote. And I think there was a lot of talk pre-mainnet launch where EOS advocates were saying there's going to be a lot of people trying to tell you that this chain is the main chain. So sit tight and hold on until some people that you trust are saying this is in fact the main chain before you do anything. And that was kind of like a best practice. And I think that for those that might have cared but weren't super technically adept, hearing that advice and then realizing it was not point and click to be able to vote, it discouraged them from voting. But I would also like to note the Crypto Mountain EOS voting pump is real. We have broken 9%. We did it, Blue. We moved the market.
Nice.
You
we
and
moved
I.
it 0.47%. That's influence for you right there.
So, in closing, if you have not voted on your EOS tokens, one little non-paid shill is Cipher Glass number 18. I've done a lot of reading on them as a block candidate. I really like, they've made a big investment in the security of their node. They put a lot of money into DDoS protection. And so if you want to know what a good block candidate should look like, I would look into what Cipher Glass is doing and then compare other block candidates to it. I think they set a good baseline. If you are completely unfamiliar with what a block candidate does and what they should be responsible for, that's one of the places that I personally started my research on. And so I wanted to give them a little shout out. We really appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for all the participation in the stream. Thank you for everybody that subscribed. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. We stream regularly, and we love having you here.
He means follow because we don't have subscribe up yet. But we're 6 follows away from breaking 100. And that's having this stream up less than 6 weeks now. So that would be huge for us if you haven't followed. We definitely appreciate it. But to kind of close out, we have some very cool stuff in the works. I know that he already brought up some of the stream stuff that we're going to have going on. But in Crypto Mountain, we have some really cool stuff in the works. So I'll definitely, if you're not in our community yet, join up. We've, a little teaser. We've got a news. It's going to be, I believe, a weekly newsletter. We're going to be pushing that out. It's going to have different news. It's going to have different coins to watch, upcoming ICOs to watch. It's going to have all sorts of great information. We're going to push that out to you guys completely free. And we also we have a website in the works. We have all sorts of cool information to push out on there. So if you're not part of our community, jump in there. We really want to be able to interact with you guys more and more. And by doing that, you'll be able to stay on top of everything that's coming out of Crypto Mountain.
Awesome. Well, Blue, until next week, I'll see you on the mountain.
Yep. See you on the flip side. Later, guys. It's been fun.